I was watching all of the stuff around Young Thug this week, and Big Bank, I think was his name, who interviewed him. One of the questions he asked Young Thug was, "Who are you? What was your first memory as a child, and what was your first memory about music?" And I realized at that point how, number one, our background shapes our thoughts and our perspective on mute and on our perspective on life, and music shapes our the music is the soundtrack of how we lived. And so in our brain we are always somewhat attached to that music that kind of raised us. When I was thinking about that, I was thinking about like the whole divide between Drake and Kendrick fans, and I all of a sudden understood the reverence for each, because around 2010, I want to say maybe '07, '08 was when Lil Wayne and Baby and them like kind of picked up Drake and started that. Even Young Thug was on Young Money at one time. That would mean that people that were born like between what 1997, 90, 85, all the way up to 2001 really grew up with Drake. Like they don't know a lot of other things, except when it flipped around 2010, 2015. By the time Kendrick Lamar hit the scene, Drake had already had probably three close to number one by high charting albums. I think it was Take Care, Views, and maybe The Best You Ever Had, something like that. But I realized how his music has shaped a big portion of the generation between like 28 and 40. That brought my question around two things. Number one, like hip hop is part of Black history. I figured out how important hip hop music was when I visited the Museum of Black History in Washington, D.C. There's a whole section around music, and a large portion of that music is around hip hop history. And I think we lost focus about our hip hop history when we started getting a little bit of watered down, kind of convoluted, very inclusive music. And there's nothing wrong with the inclusive music, I believe. But I also believe that there's something to be said about the sacred part of our history and how we should stand up for keeping that to ourselves. Not keeping it to ourselves doesn't mean exclude everyone, but owning your thing. Like it's been a part of life to, especially when I grew up, that every time there was a good thing, especially in the Black community, it wasn't unreasonable that, white people or Caucasians came along and saw that it was good and then decided that they either discovered it or they want to take it and capitalize on it. And so I think we have the opportunity, though, to protect hip hop from being convoluted, all the while we can still be inclusive. And that led me up to the conversation about gatekeepers. And I was thinking about gatekeepers because gatekeeping goes all the way back to the Bible. Like even in Leviticus, I'm looking over here at my computer because I wrote some notes about gatekeeping in Leviticus. Gatekeeping was described as the people who guarded the temple, and there was metaphoric concept for anyone responsible for protecting the sacred thing. And so I don't think gatekeeping in hip hop is outlandish. There's a lot of gatekeeping that goes on in country music. We saw that exemplified by how Beyonce was treated with her country album. And so I don't know why it would be confusing for Black Americans, even though rap and hip hop is globally accepted, to try and protect the sacred parts of hip hop. Now, what do you mean by hip hop? Because hip hop is not just music, right? Hip hop is a culture. It's the way we walk, we talk, a lot of our traditions and the way we carry those in our lives, and we teach our children, and it becomes sickly. But rap is just the way we've expressed the expression of our culture that's come out of our plights and our happiness, our trials, and it's kind of led us through life. Music has affected us in all kind of ways, in different ways, but we can't get stuck on partying and twerking because those things can represent a good portion of hip hop music, but hip hop is so much more complex than that. So I'm wondering, are we doing a good job of like telling our kids and showing our kids what the background was, reminding them of the KRS Ones and the Public Enemies, the NWAs and what they stood for, how they expressed what was going on the streets in other places. Like before we had cell phones, you had to go and glue yourself to the wall to call somebody. And by the time you got across town, you had to pay for it by the minute, and your conversations were short. And there was no social media. So rap and hip hop and the way we expressed that was kind of Morse code. I don't know if y'all remember what a Morse code was, but it's encoded, encrypted messages. It was kind of that, and that's how we learned about what was going on in the rest of the world. That's how I knew what they were wearing and what they were doing in New York when I was in the South. And that's how, we figured out what the police was doing on the streets of California. Like that was our messaging. I think we've lost some of that messaging, but I don't even know if that same messaging is needed right now. But I do think there is some messaging that's still needed, some responsible messaging, so that we don't like lose sight. I mean, the sexy reds of the day are good and fun. They put me in the mind of Trina, but what about the stuff we need, like the "we gonna be all right" when it's time to march, like things that represent times and spaces that express our struggles, and who's documenting that for us. So I thought that was an interesting subject because whenever I find people like me, I wonder if they reminded their kids, like I have, of what that history is. They know that history. When the song comes on, they are able to recite it. And are we telling our children's children? Like, will they remember? Like the 12-year-olds now, many members of the Black community, especially in America, are more affluent than ever. Their children are privileged. They don't necessarily have to, want to, or even need to listen to just rap music or hip hop. But are we doing a good job of reminding them and educating them and informing them, like on the roots and what hip hop represents for everybody? So moving along in that space, I kind of wanted to see, like, in doing this, if I could find my voice and then remind everybody that hip hop is still alive. It's still alive and well. So who do we think the gatekeepers are? When I had my record label, I felt like the gatekeepers were DJs, program directors at radio stations, and the big executives, including people like Diddy and Dr. Dre, maybe who was it over at on the West Coast that Dre was under? It wasn't if somebody can put it in the chat, y'all know who I'm talking about. He's in prison right now. But those people were gatekeepers, right? That I will never forget the story about how Vanilla Ice was hung over the balcony because he had actually taken some music, like they used to do in the old days, from another rapper slapped his name on it and popularized it. It was Ice Ice Baby. But those are the people who protected the music and assured that the people who own the music and who the music stood for. Suge Knight, thank you, Jay Wilson. They assured that the people who own the music were represented by the music, and it wasn't stolen for us. And at minimum, even though it wasn't always they weren't always glorifying our lifestyles in the music was protected. And now that a lot of the big record labels are restructuring because of social media, they can't make the money the same way with these 360 contracts. We're looking at a new landscape for gatekeepers, and I'm wondering what that's going to look like for us. So by saying that, I do think we have a responsibility to pass what we know and pass our knowledge on to like the next generation. For now, I think fans, number one, and I think I did a video about it, fans represent a big portion of the gatekeepers. And I found that when you're on social media, they tend to push false narratives about some music. And I don't know who is the person who corrects. Like, who are the people who corrects? Secondly, like reactors, they're a big portion of gatekeeping now. Like, because some of these people like Casanat, they have millions of viewers. And you would be surprised how many people are just followers in the world. There's not a lot of leaders. And whatever they say is good. But Casanat himself is not that educated. Like, he doesn't know enough about hip hop in this space to even be a gatekeeper, but he is. And so is it our responsibility to hold him accountable? Next would be podcasters, these Joe Buddens of the world and Vlad. Those are the people we're leaving our children's music to. At what point do we stand up and say, look, this is what we believe and this is what should be right? I mean, I don't know what else we could do except to make sure that the music is preserved, not only in our houses and our hearts, but also with our children. Some of the better spaces to check out music or to hear music commentary. I know we're busy. We have kids, we're helping with homework. But guys, we got to get on our podcast. We got to find one or two people we trust, listen to our podcast so that we can keep up and also interact. I mean, your voice matters. It's been known that if there's enough negative stuff online about a thing, people will pivot. That's what we have to do. The last thing I thought was ideal to discuss was, where is there a place for street code in music? Like, and why are people held to a standard of street code in music? Now that we've lost the gatekeeper in Diddy, he's in jail. Many of the music execs, some of them have died out. Suge's in jail. Andre Pharrell has died. You know, we have Jay-Z, who should probably be a gatekeeper, and I don't doubt that he isn't behind the scenes. But should his voice be bigger? Or is he doing a better job with us not knowing how he moves? And watching this Young Thug thing play out, and him calling like Ghana a snitch or whatever, should this kind of lifestyle bleed over into music? And who are the people that represents the people who say that once you cross that threshold, you should leave some of the lifestyle behind? Because I think like a lot of our Black men are represented that way, and maybe that's why we're not teaching our kids about hip hop. Maybe we don't want them engrossed in some of that dialogue. I think it's a good time, though, to start having those kind of discussions with them, because they will face it in the music soon, and they have to know how to decipher between the two. Let me see. I'm going to read some comments, and then I'm not going to keep y'all much longer. We'll end our live in 30 minutes. I thought I would be more long-winded than I am, but I'm not. And thank you, Janae, for showing up. CJ Jr. Oh, yeah, they do. They want all of our rhythm and none of our blues. This is exactly right. Because this display is shown, like with Drake, like one of the criticisms that has come upon him is, okay, people want to say he's been leading the culture for 15 years. Of course, now Thug has let it out the box that he's been buying bots, right? I mean, he's been buying streams. But one of the criticisms is because he's not from the U.S., and the U.S. is where hip hop originated, and it was born out of our struggles. Like, he never shows up to represent any of those things. Like, he does, and he's kind of tone deaf and mute when it comes to people being shot down in the street and police brutality. So yeah, they don't want the blues part for sure. Nobody wants that, but everybody wants to wear the jeans, but nobody wants to go in the factory to manufacture them. Jay Wilson, do you think record panels determine the style of music artists make? I'm not sure what record panels are, but I do believe that there's a such thing as industry plants. Whether we believe it or not, there is. And I do think that once Dr. Dre, made all the money he could off Eminem, Young Money, Cash Money wanted to follow that because Birdman saw dollar signs. I think Drake was chosen because he's racially ambiguous and he was given the music. I mean, it came out today that somebody else wrote The Best You Ever Had. And like now everything's coming out. So I do know that streams can be bought. This is a recourse. There is a hip hop recourse in place right now. Ever since this battle, and I don't know why it triggered it, but record labels were already starting to restructure anyway because there's not a lot of money in streaming. And so physical copies and those buying physical copies and the 360 deals aren't getting them enough money either. And the way the artist makes money is off touring. So the question is, do I think they determine the style of music that the artists make? I think yes. I think once they plant a music and it takes off and people buy into it, nothing else matters except everybody wants to follow that mold. Now, though, I think people are getting back to lyrics, which is good because that was kind of the foundation of hip hop. But it feels like number ones are struggling because of that. Because now that the stuff that Drake, the hippity hoppity stuff that Drake is making is not resonating with people. They're not buying this music. Hip hop now is kind of struggling to find its footing because nobody knows what's working. The only thing that really is working right now is the West Coast sound. So that's why I really feel like people will start to regionalize music again. And then the new gatekeepers will start to dictate what music we listen to. I think those real gatekeepers have changed though. But I do think Jay-Z is one. Do y'all think that Jay-Z is one of the gatekeepers? Diddy's gone. Who would be the other gatekeepers? I know in the past it was Jimmy Iovine and Clive Davis, all those people. But except for Jay-Z, Maybe Dr. Dre still. I'm not sure who those gatekeepers are anymore. C. Jack Jr. says, you're right. The way the music is captured as a cornerstone of the Black community within the African American Museum in DC will help you understand. Yeah, exactly. I was very surprised at the displays in the African American Museum. Even the names of the people, of the artists that just kind of laid the foundation. You saw everybody from Salt and Pepper's name. I mean, you name them, they were there. And I was very surprised that these people have been represented on the wall. It's a nice section. And it was very informative. They had the cassettes, they have CDs. I'm saying a 13-year-old probably doesn't even know what a cassette looks like right now. One of my friends found one of my cassettes and sent me a picture of it. And I don't even have anything to play it on. So yeah, that's a great place to start when we want to start teaching our children so that we can leave the history in them when we're gone about what that represents. Yeah, I think Diddy and Russell Simmons probably did abuse their power. In fact, I know they all did, not just them. DJs, I mean, my family can attest to how much money they ciphered out of us just to play our records. And even when I was singing myself, I can't tell you the number of back rooms I was led down with hands, creeping up my leg, asking me how bad I wanted my records played. So I think there's somewhat abuse in all walks of life, like not just music, right? Even over at the hospital where I work, there's probably some abuse of power. But I think people have to be smart and decide that they don't want it so bad that they can't walk away like from the bad actors. They have to be strong enough to say that they can walk away from the bad actors. Yep, we rap about what we know, which is the beauty of hip hop, right? Because it's informative. That's how we know. Like, how do I know what's going on in DC if you don't rap about it? And that was our old form of communication, almost like the Underground Railroad. There were signals and songs that they made to say, okay, we're coming tonight. Like, I'm gonna lay down my burdens down by the riverside. It wasn't a church song. It was letting people know tonight, down by the Jordan River, meet us, right? So hip hop is the new form of the Underground Railroad for us, but social media is the new gateway. And so we have to, us in this space, not just me and you guys too, have to decide how we're going to use our gateway to influence like the next generation. Drake's tone deafness was demonstrated when he said K-Dot was rapping like he was trying to free the slaves. Absolutely. Which means that leads to the question, can somebody that is not from the US be the leader of hip hop? Like, is there any way, shape, form, or scenario where you guys think that anyone that is not Black American could be labeled at the top of hip hop? I don't know that we should do. I don't know that we should do that. Like one of the things I respect about Eminem is he understands that he is a visitor here. But the best thing about Eminem is he did understand the struggle because he grew up in it. And even though it wasn't his direct struggle, he was struggle adjacent. And anybody struggle adjacent can talk about it. But if you weren't, your tone deafness is louder than your deafness. So you think Jay-Z think he's bigger than rap? I don't know, because Jay-Z kind of feels like, even though he was famous and he did trap in the street, he kind of feels more like an introvert to me, probably. People say he listens more than he talks, but that's probably part of his personality. He probably has a lot of social anxiety. But I do respect the way he moves with his power. Like, because even though when people are mad that everybody wants to blame Jay-Z, there's so many stories about how he rescued a lot of these rappers, R&B singers from horrible contracts, debt, and even injustice like Meek Mill. So I kind of respect how he moves behind the scenes. And I think Dame Dash is washed up, especially given like of late, the only thing he had left of his power was that he owned a good portion of Reasonable Doubt. And he was kind of holding that over Jay-Z's head, but given his debt lately, he's had to auction off Reasonable Doubt, and he no longer owns that. So now he's kind of like feels like a puppet. I think he's broker than he'd like to lead on. And the last one says Canadians don't know their history. I mean, I think they do. There's a large Black Canadian culture. And as I do my research, they're very vocal. Drake just didn't grow up with them. I think one of the things his biggest misstep is not capitalizing on his own culture and bringing that part of him, his half Black Canadian side, to the forefront while he was coming up, because he would have had that part of that cultural cachet at minimum when he lost his footing in this rap beef. He didn't capitalize on that, and he's paying for that. Yeah, Dash I think he's broke. All right, you guys, I love y'all. I thought I would be able to go an hour. I ain't got that kind of talk in me, but I am enjoying this space. I really, 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 really appreciate your support. Dame just filed bankruptcy. Yeah. But you know, Dame's broke ain't our broke. I think he had some, I'm pretty sure y'all can check it out, but I want to say he had some stake in television network somewhere. So I don't think his broke look like my broke, even though he is broke. I wanted to leave y'all with some stats, just so you can tell your friends that I'm here and tell them that this is a safe space for anybody over 45, 50, even going in their 60s who still love hip hop. This is a safe space. Come over here and tell me your troubles and listen to my videos, and I will be here for you. I want to give y'all some stats. And I love having, like, when I check my analytics, I have a really large 18 to 34 subscriber group, and I appreciate them because I know that they can learn a lot on this side of the water, and I just kind of wanted to give you some stats. So there are, in the United States alone, there are 93.5 million people who listen and consume hip hop. In the United States alone. I just checked them again, and 15% of 45 to 54-year-olds consume hip hop, music, and or merch. 5% of 55 to 64-year-olds, and 1% of 65. When I do my calculations, that's almost 14 million 45 to 50-year-old people out there. 4.5, almost 5 million 55 to 64-year-old people out there, and almost 1 million 65 plus consuming hip hop. So I need y'all to come over here to this side and support me. Now, drop at any time, drop me a message, leave a comment if you have any ideas about content. And I am using one of my subscribers' ideas that's coming up on Friday and you will see it. So tune in on Friday. I will drop a video on Friday. I changed my drop date. So my drop dates are Thursday night. When you wake up Friday morning, you will see new videos, random videos during the week. And I will try to have at least one live every 2 weeks. Also drop in the chat For the people who showed up, thank you. Drop in the chat the best time. If 8 o'clock on Wednesday is not a great time, let me know. If Saturday morning brunch, Wednesday evening, or Thursday evening, and the times. I thank you. I would say I would do a long black goodbye, but that's one of my favorite YouTubers. Absolutely, that's her catch. So I'm just gonna say thanks for stopping by the house.